Hello everyone and welcome back to the bass guitar build series. In this video we're going to get the control cavity cover, the control cavity cover sorted, as well as potentially glue this buckeye together. We'll see how we get on. So firstly, this control cavity cover. Now this is obviously the front of the guitar and I need to put this cover on the back of the guitar, but I don't have the outline of it on there, so we're going to transfer that round first. Where's my square? Right, so I got this cover sanded last night at my evening class, or just before. Don't worry, I didn't do it while I didn't do it while I was supposed to be teaching. It was actually the last class of the year, which is generally the most stressful one because everyone's gluing stuff together and yeah, there's all sorts going on. Right, that seems to be the position that we want it in. So it's overhanging very little at the crack there. Obviously I can't see where the hole is in relation to that, so I'm just going to draw around it. Okay, so it overhangs on all the edges, some of them more than others. So we've got a big bit that sticks out here where I can put a screw in, very minimal amounts around here, another bit here where I can put a screw in, and another one down here as well. Right, so now that we're happy with that position, we can carefully knife around it. So now we're going to route that cover cavity section out very roughly with the router and then finish it off by hand. So we'll get as close to those lines as we can now. Right, one of them. Okay, so I managed to get really close to these outside walls with the router, but obviously we need to finish it with a chisel. Unfortunately, this is an out canal chisel, which means that the bevel is on the outside. Ideally, I would want the bevel on the inside here so that I could hit it down vertically, but because the bevel's on the outside of this, I need to angle it in so that the bevel is going vertical as opposed to the chisel. So we've got a nice little snug fit in here. It's very easy to put in and remove, yet it still holds itself very nicely in there. So you can see it's just, it's a lovely fit that. So what I'm going to do is just put a little chamfer on the back edge or just take off that arris so that it's easier to locate into the hole. Yes, I am aware that this cover is a little bit lighter than the rest of it. It's still oven coal, but it was from a different log compared to the body. But if I put a bit of methylated spirits on there, yeah, it's still a bit light, isn't it? But oh well, it's the cover on the back. It's not that important, is it? I actually quite like that contrast, if anything. Whoop. Cool. So now we can start thinking about gluing these bits of buckeye together. And I suspect that planing these is going to be a little bit of a job. So firstly, let's get the right orientation of what I needed. So we got a hand plane, the joint between these bits of buckeye. So I'm going to do this on a shooting board. So for this, long bit of plywood, which I'm going to cramp between a dog and a holdfast on the workbench, and then clamp down this fence at the back. Doesn't need to be perfectly square, just square enough by eye. Okay, and then the buckeye will go on there, close to the edge, and then you can get a plane on its side and shoot through. Being very gentle with this because I don't know how delicate it is. Okay, that was actually a little bit easier than expected. That's a lovely joint we've got going on there. Now the other thing I need to do here is, if you remember the designing series that I did on this guitar, we didn't have quite enough material to cover this top horn up here. So I was going to steal some of the material from down here and book match it up there. So I need to plane the edge of that panel square and also cut the excess off here so I can attach it up there. So let's see, I need about 90 millimeters of material. And I have 110-ish here, so let's give myself 100 millimeters of it. God, this project really does scare me sometimes. Okay, let's make sure I get this right. So that came off of there, and the way that these were meant to be book matched was like that. Yep, that was the way they were sawn. So then what I need to do is with this bit, in order to match it up here, it needs to go over like this and then fold out. Yes, look at that. There's 3 knots there. Well, now it's 6, but they all match up and, oh, that looks great. That's really cool. So we'll pop a triangle on those so I know that that is the way it's meant to match, and then we'll take them to the shooting board. All right, let's see how this glues up in here. So these clamps only need very, very light pressure, because applying too much at this point is going to cause the boards to bow up and it's not going to be a nice flat joint. Sweet, looks good to me. Oops, needs to get a bit more lined up. Cool, that looks good to me. So to glue this together, I think I'm going to use Titebond's no run, no drip, because this wood is very porous and quite soft. I just think if I use standard PVA, it's going to drink it up and the joint's going to end up being quite dry. So this is the glue I tend to use on MDF because it's nice and thick and it's pretty much like a paint-like consistency, and it isn't able to soak up into the material. So let's get a bit of this good stuff in here. So I've put a clamp along the top here to stop the components from springing up as you saw them do. So that's going to keep them nice and flat, and I was able to apply a little bit more pressure with this one as well. But now I can be certain that I don't have a glue starved joint because this stuff isn't soaking in whatsoever. It's thickening up quite happily on there. Look, you see it's already going quite like clumpy and like chalky. It's very, very thick, very good stuff. Right, so cracks are all cut. Cavities are routed out. The cover is fitted on the back. I think we're ready to cut these out. I think at last we were at that point. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Right, so there we go. They're all cut out and oh my God, are they light. It is amazing. Compared to my previous base that was like a collapsed star, it was so heavy. This, like this section here, there is no weight to that whatsoever. Really great. What you might have noticed is that I swapped blades halfway through that. I was using the thick ripping blade to start with, which I was getting rid of all these internal sections here and this little notch at the bottom, this internal section here, and there was a little notch at the bottom as well. So I did that because I didn't really need those areas. Those could go to waste. However, what I did need to keep was the negatives of these outside curves like this, because when it comes to gluing this body on, I need a square edge in order to put the clamps on. So I needed to take these off in one big hit, which is why I swapped to the premium blade afterwards, because it was able to handle some of these curves a little bit better. So we got the negative for that one, and this one, we've got a negative to go in that area there. You'll notice that I kept the bottom section of this half on because the line goes off the edge of the guitar, so if I cut that off, it's just gonna separate completely, and I obviously can't get any clamping force from it because it will just slip on there. So I'm gonna keep that on there for now, get it glued on, and then we'll cut it off once the whole guitar is assembled. Right, and that is where we're gonna leave it for today because we need to wait for the glue on the Buckeye to dry, and apart from anything, I forgot my lunch and I am so hungry. So in the next episode, we'll get the other half of the Buckeye glued on and do some other bits. See you then.